You know, there's an old saying, Courtney, that I really believe in. It's played out so many times. One man with courage makes a majority. And that's basically what you've got here in the state senator, this young state senator, Colton Moore, who has ignited a grassroots firestorm in Georgia, and people are waking up. And now they're trying to sanction him. Unbelievable. Courtney, thanks for being with us. Next up,
Thanks for having me, John.
American Sunrise, Dr. Gina and Miranda Khan.
Just ahead on American Sunrise, we are live from the Villages. And in moments, find out why this beautiful little community of retirees is more of a microcosm of mainstream America.
Plus, from the Villages to the southern border. There are new stats out this morning putting into perspective the volume of illegals crossing into this country. We'll take a closer look as our team is uncovering new information and video in Lukeville, Arizona.
And can the deep state be defeated? Kash Patel will be here with a frightening look at the inner workings of Washington, D.C. and the government gangsters that run the deep state.
And making a difference for those who lost their lives on 9/11. From New York to Florida and around the world, patriots are standing up to lend a helping hand.
And getting through our darkest times via the power of faith. Find out how one pastor got the calling that saved his life and how he is saving others. American Sunrise starts right now.
got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning. Look at you.
Woohoo!
Good morning. I'm Dr. Gina here at the Villages. Look at this, Miranda. How amazing is this?
It is amazing. Who needs coffee when you're here?
Right.
Good
Nope,
morning,
don't need it.
everyone. We are live at City Fire American Oven and Bar, and what an awesome place.
This
Love
is
it here.
fun.
Oh, we're having a ball.
We are
I hope you
having
guys
a
are having a
ball.
good time. Are we having a good time? Definitely having a good time. We got here yesterday.
Yeah, got here yesterday, been hanging out with all these good people. They were there for our 4 o'clock show yesterday,
Yep.
special report. And then we were out with them last night, many of them, and just doing the thing. And then back here this morning with all of these great people. Let's bring in David Brody in Washington, D.C. David, good morning.
Good morning, Gina. Good morning, Miranda. Hey, everybody in the Villages. Y'all rock. You are fantastic. I love the Villages, and I think in honor of the show, I should be doing the show here in D.C. on a golf cart. But I'm not going to because that would hurt my back. But Terrence Bates, are you on a golf cart in Denver? I don't know, but I do know this. You've got headlines. Terrence.
David, good morning. Good morning to those of you at home, and a special good morning to all of those of you there in the Villages. We'll be back with you here momentarily. But first, East Palestine, Ohio is getting nearly $900,000 for mental health services in the aftermath of the toxic train derailment there some 7 months ago. The money is being handed out in the form of an emergency grant from the federal government to the Ohio Department of Mental Health. As the town deals with the after effects of February's spill, President Biden still has not been there to visit despite promising to do so. In case you happen to miss it, he was asked about why he's neglected to visit despite taking trips to disaster-ravaged Hawaii and Florida just in the last few weeks.
Well, I haven't had the occasion to go to East Palestine. There's a lot going on here, and I just haven't been able to break. I was thinking whether I'd go to East Palestine this week, but I then was reminded I've got to go literally around the world. I'm going from Washington to India to Vietnam and so it's going to be a while.
Okay. Again, the East Palestine derailment was 7 months ago. Since then, the president is vacationing in California. He's taken trips abroad. He's even been in Philadelphia for Labor Day, which of course is just a short flight from East Palestine. Critics believe the commander-in-chief is overlooking the small town because it voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump in 2020. Speaking of President Trump, he's calling on Big Pharma to fess up about COVID vaccines, their efficacy, and the side effects.
But if they have facts, I mean, the facts are public. They should be made public immediately. People should understand that, and they should know what research is showing. They have to they have to be honest with the numbers, the facts, and they have an obligation to be honest. And if they are going to hold back, that means they're holding back something that's not good. So it's good for them to be honest, and people are going to understand it too.
That's exactly what we.
They have to be honest with and they have to, any information, they have to release it.
That was President Trump speaking with former Michigan gubernatorial candidate and Real America's Voice alum Tudor Dixon. The conversation comes just weeks after the Biden administration and the Department of Health and Human Services handed out more than $1.4 billion for Project Next Gen, which is geared towards developing a new generation of tools and technologies to protect against future strains of COVID-19. President Trump says without transparency about the current vaccines, there's little chance Americans can and will have confidence in new vaccines. Day 2 of Texas's historic impeachment proceeding against the state's Attorney General Ken Paxton is set to get underway here shortly. Tuesday's opening of the impeachment trial before the Texas State Senate was marked by theatrics and motions to dismiss the case against the Attorney General.
Attorney General Ken Paxton is innocent and therefore pleads not guilty.
Texas's lieutenant governor, who is overseeing the trial, ruled that Paxton can't be forced to testify. In the meantime, one of the House impeachment managers arguing for Paxton's removal alleged that the AG failed to protect the state and instead used his elected office for his own benefit. Paxton's wife serves in the state Senate but wasn't sworn in to be able to vote on the impeachment. All eyes will be on the doors to the state Senate chamber today to see if Paxton returns for the hearing after he abruptly left early Tuesday. Well, that's going to do it for your headlines. Now, let's get back to Dr. Gina and Miranda as they are hanging out there at the Villages. And Dr. Gina, I just have to say, you blessed me this morning. I told you earlier, but I'm going to tell you publicly. You said a prayer there with the folks at the Villages before we came on the air, and it was truly a blessing to me. So thank you so much for that. And blessings to everyone there at the Villages. Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much, Terrence. Terrence, I'll tell you what, these are prayer warriors. These are freedom warriors. These people are fighting what is happening to our J6ers, and they love President Trump. Yeah. And it's a great lead-in, Terrence, honestly, because today's Bible verse from Jesus Calling is Psalm 32, verse 7. And it says this: "You are my hiding place. You shall preserve me from trouble. You shall surround me with songs of deliverance." You know, the great thing, no matter what the story of the day is, no matter what the news is, we know the end of the story, and we can laugh at the days to come, as it also says in Proverbs 31. So, Terrence, thank you for that. And it's how amazing, Miranda,
Yes.
to be here in the company of these Patriot warriors.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it's so infectious. I mean,
Yes.
they're right, because it's like they're so, their spirits are lifted. They're wanting to take their country back. I mean, and they're just so motivated, and you just can't help but feel that, like
Yeah.
in the air, right? There's something definitely different in the air here in the Villages, I would say, for sure. So, joining us now is a friend of American Sunrise and someone who many of you guys know here in the Villages, and that, of course, is Bob Riverniter. He is a GOP consultant and a member of Villagers for Trump, and it's wonderful to see you again. We were chatting yesterday and then the day before. Good to see you. You're kind of a big deal here.
Yeah,
Well,
kind
we're
of
having a
big
great
deal.
time, you know. Well, thank you. But, you know, there's one thing. First of all, the Villages is Trump country.
Yes,
This is
no
Trump
doubt about
country.
it.
But the Villages is known for one other thing, and let's do it on three. 1, 2, 3. The Villages, America's friendliest hometown. So, sorry about putting you through that. But yeah, so this is Trump country. This is the Villages for Trump, and we do love President Trump. We are going to be bringing President Trump back into office to save this country, because it's vital that we save this country.
You know, we talked about it the other day, but not everyone is familiar with the Villages. I know David Brody is. He's been here before. Obviously, we've been here before. But describe what the Villages is for people that have never been here, never experienced this neck of the woods.
Well, actually, I came here about 3 years ago. My father had moved here in about
In
3
Florida,
years. Yeah, I live down in South Florida. When you come up here into the Villages, into the area here, you just get a different feeling. First of all, it's the largest retirement community in the world.
Right, 145,000 people. Is that the number?
And growing all the
I think it might
time.
be 147, right? Yeah.
If you take
Well,
a
Gina's ready. Jane's ready to move here. So.
Ready to move here. We'll love
I love
to
it
have
here.
Love to have you here.
Yeah.
We have a lot of famous people have moved here, people that you know. But one of the things about the Villages is everybody's here to have fun. Everybody here is from somewhere else, because this is a new place. Mm-hmm. So they all know that. They all experience the same thing. They all moved here in order to be a part of a fun area, place where you go to the squares last night. Live music every night.
And it was good music.
And good
music. It was not 80s music. Sorry, I don't like 80s
and
music. It was good, but it was all kinds of music. It was. I heard country.
Yeah.
People were dancing.
Yeah.
There was a great 70s rock kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm from the Ozarks, and I loved the music, the food, everything here. It was so great. I told my husband it was perfect. I'd be here every night if I.
You can go to the squares every night. You can experience different music at each square.
Wow.
So they'll have different bands that'll be playing. One of the things, Scooter the DJ, for example, gets everybody up dancing and playing songs like the McDonald's song and all these fun stuff. And everybody, when you see I look at some of the people out there and I say, these folks are like 80 years old. They're out there dancing. They're living their life. And this guy was probably a banker in New York all of his life, stuffed in a little box up in some office. And here he is enjoying his life, experiencing the fun, and just with him and his wife, and they're both 80 years old, and they're having fun, and they're just dancing all night long.
So fun.
That breathes new life into you.
Now, right now, there's a Trump train out in front.
We have the Trump train out front, yes.
But last night, there were 200 golf carts parked out in front of this amazing restaurant where we are. But I wanted to ask you, because there's this rumor that I keep hearing, and no one can confirm this for me, something about that all of the major facilities here are plumbed for beer. Is that true?
Beer?
I mean, I know it's early, but I'm just curious if it's true. I heard that all of the facilities here had special plumbing put in so that beer can get there. I don't know if it's true, but this is just what
I think that's maybe wishful thinking on Gina's part.
Wishful thinking on my part also, yes. Yes, but that's the thing. Matter of fact, here at City Fire in Brownwood, this is probably one of the best places in all of the villages to come and have fun, experience.
Yeah.
Right on this stage right here, we have music practically every night.
We're loving it because we were here last night, so we're going to continue to talk about
on the highway.
This is the dance floor.
Yeah.
I've personally been on this pole.
All right, we're not going to show that to you. I'm sure it was amazing.
It was fun.
But we're going to show you much more here at the Villages here in Florida, talk more about how supportive you've been of Trump and your message for American people, real
and for
Americans
the
like you.
J6ers. I love how the J6ers are in everyone's heart here. All right, coming up, more Real American Voices here at the Villages. You're not going to want to miss it. That's next. We'll be back in just a moment.
You guys are great.
Aww.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back live from City Fire American Oven and Bar in the Villages. I'm ready to move here. Miranda, will you come too? Because I don't go anywhere without my partner in crime.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to. Can we share a golf cart, or do we have to have separate golf carts?
Well, I'm just thinking, because we like to fashion coordinate a lot, that we'll text each other when we get to the golf cart store.
Okay.
Just like we do our dresses in the morning. You'll be like, I'm buying a powder blue golf cart today. I'll be like, I'm in pink then.
Okay. That's how we roll. Yeah. Definitely. We're just having such a good time. I just want to thank you guys for the hospitality.
Yeah. Thank you.
Especially City Fire. We came here yesterday after doing the morning show, and everyone was just so welcoming. We went to the Wildwood Community Center. Kash Patel was speaking there, and we were talking about that there were like 147,000, give or take, people that live here in the Villages. Again, the largest.
I had no idea. Did you know that?
I knew it was a lot, but
I thought maybe 5,000 or 10,000. I had no idea.
But 5,000 of them are for Trump. That part of the organization.
In this particular
That's when you guys are supposed to applaud. 5,000 for President Trump.
Yeah.
So, exactly. I mean, it's huge here, and it's just, you're right, kind of reminds you of like small town Midwest. Cause
it does. And the feel here is very much like that. There's like these little city squares. I'm going to say this all wrong, but basically, there are these little city squares with all these shops and restaurants and bars, and everybody.
Where beer is just flowing freely.
They plumbed the beer, or I made that up. I don't know. Maybe I had a dream. But it really does feel like small town, and it feels. I'm just going to say this. Not that I don't love all my New Yorkers down in South Florida, but I will say it feels like the Midwest to me, where I'm from and where you're from.
Yeah. And so maybe this is why we want to move here.
I think that's why we want to move here.
We're like, this is why we miss the Midwest.
That's
so
right.
Much.
That's
so
right.
Much.
Well, we want to go to our friend here, Sarah. She is a resident of the Villages. And Sarah,
Gina wants her T-shirt. Just want to get that out of the way.
T-shirt and maybe your button that most people can't see. It says something like fuddy-dud Joe Biden or flopping Joe Biden, or I don't know, but we're not going to talk about that. But anyway, I might or might not have that on the back of my truck and the back of my car.
Excellent.
Yes. But anyway, just tell us what you love about being here and being part of this, especially this Trump organization, where you all... It sounds to me like you are leading the way in volunteerism, precinct captains, and the whole thing. Tell us.
Well, the Villages here, we are so involved and so committed to getting President Trump reelected in 2024. We all know that he won in 2020, and that election was fraudulently certified. And we know that he needs to get back into office in 2024, because otherwise we won't have a country left. So that's what we're committed to here.
When you talk about voter turnout, I mean, this is huge. You had like 90% voter turnout?
Yes, we have a hugely active community here, and it's such a pleasure to be a part of it. The spirit here is so beautiful. Everyone here loves their country. They love their president. We love our military, and we want nothing more than to create a beautiful, free country for our children and our grandchildren.
That's amazing, because it really becomes about more than just socializing and being part of something, but it really is a legacy of sorts to be here and to be part of all of this, right? This is speaking directly into the future.
Absolutely. You know, we know that we were put here for such a time as this. We are leading the charge to change this country. We don't have any time left to waste on these trivial matters that don't matter to our country. We have to get our country back on track, and we have to get President Trump back into office. There's no other option.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, we really do appreciate your time, and we're going to talk more about how the Villages, like leading the charge there, how they're trying to get the message out there, and specifically how they're helping January 6ers, voter integrity. Right. So you don't want to miss it. We still have much more coming your way. We are live at the Villages in Florida, and we're going to be right back with much more. You're watching American Sunrise.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Some Beard Vet coffee here. What do you think? Welcome back. Miranda here, Gina here, and we are live again at the Villages here in beautiful Florida. Loving life. We're at City and Fire, and this is just awesome.
It really is.
A great time.
It really is the nicest people you could ever want to know. And speaking of, one of the nicest people you could ever want to know, how about some headlines sponsored by AMAC with our own T-Man?
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
For older Americans lucky enough to live in a community like the Villages where Miranda and Gina are right now, their golden years are just that, golden. But for some, growing old comes with severe consequences. Elder abuse appears to be on the rise here in the United States and globally. A new report out of Australia points to a more than 40% increase in elder abuse cases over the past 5 years. According to the National Council on Aging, about 1 in 10 Americans over the age of 60 have experienced some sort of abuse. Some estimates have as many as 5 million senior citizens being abused in this country annually. Only 1 in 25 cases, though, are actually reported, so advocates say the numbers may be even higher. While you were sleeping, Secretary of State Antony Blinken touched down in Ukraine on an unannounced visit.
I'm here first and foremost to demonstrate our ongoing and determined support for Ukraine.
Translation, he's giving away even more of your tax dollars. This time it's reportedly another military aid package of up to $200 million for the war-weary nation. A larger package of more than $1 billion is expected later this week. The funding visit comes on the heels of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky firing his defense minister this week amid a number of corruption scandals over military procurement. There are also reports that Blinken is making the trip to get a first-hand assessment of the Ukrainian counteroffensive against Russia, since there has been criticism of the Ukrainian strategy. And 52 million airbag inflators produced by auto supplier ARC Automotive and Delphi Automotive need to be recalled because they could rupture. That's the word from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The agency initially called on the two suppliers to voluntarily recall the parts back in May, but ARC rejected the demand. Tuesday, the NHTSA began the process of forcing a recall by setting a public meeting on the issue for a month from now. You may be driving a car with one of those allegedly faulty air inflators. 12 car makers, including General Motors, Tesla, Toyota, Hyundai, and Mercedes, use the inflators. Affected models range from 2000 to early 2018. The NHTSA says the parts, quote, pose an unreasonable risk of serious injury or death. That's a quick check of your headlines brought to you by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. All right, now let's check in with the most mature citizen on this panel. That would be David Brody. See, now that's what you call a transition, Mr. Brody. Good morning.
I tell you what, that is the transition of all transitions, and I'm doing a fact check on that, and my family has a big buzzer. Not mature citizen of America. Thank you, Terrence. I appreciate it. Speaking of citizens of America, why don't we transition to illegal immigrants here in America? How's that for a transition, Terrence? Look, illegal immigration, we know, is a huge problem. It is open borders galore under the Biden administration, and then the question really becomes, what in the world are we going to do about it? We've been talking about this for a very long time. Let's try to get some answers from the former U.S. Secretary, acting U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, who is with us now. Chad, thanks for being here. You have said, at least a couple months ago, you said in front of a congressional committee that this is a crisis, in essence, done on purpose. I'm paraphrasing there. I want you to kind of give us a sense of what the Biden administration has done here and what can be done at this point.
Well, the Biden administration inherited one of the most secure borders in our lifetime. And I think what they've done over the past 28, 29 months is systematically dismantle that border security for a variety of different reasons. But I think what you see today is mass illegal immigration into the United States and being, all of these illegal aliens coming across are being released into American communities. So that catch and release policy where Border Patrol catches them, but unfortunately has to release them into the United States, that was eliminated under President Trump. Obviously, we've seen that come back under President Biden. And what that has resulted in is more and more individuals crossing that border, putting their lives in the hands of cartel members and human traffickers to numbers that we've just never seen before. Numbers even last month are increasing month after month after month. And so what it tells you is that the strategy of the Biden administration has failed. It's failed the American people, but they continue to double down on it. And I don't really see an end in sight for the next year and a half.
Chad, there has been talk about Alejandro Mayorkas, the current Homeland Secretary, not just a dereliction of duty, but there's been talk of possibly impeaching him. What is your message to Kevin McCarthy and House Republican leadership about this potential move?
Yeah, I've been very clear that there needs to be new leadership at the department. The department's law enforcement officers, the Border Patrol agents, and other members of DHS have lost confidence in the secretary. So he either needs to resign, he needs to be fired, or he needs to be impeached at the end of the day. I think House Republicans have done a pretty good job of some oversight over the secretary and over the department and the decisions that have been made. I think more needs to be done. Hopefully we'll see more here in September and October. But they need to send a signal that it's not business as usual along that border, and there are consequences. I think that's what the American people want at the end of the day. They've seen 2.5 years of this crisis going on at the border, and they're saying, where's the accountability? Who is held responsible for this? And so you can either turn to President Biden, Secretary Mayorkas. Really, those are your two options. And I think it's time for the secretary to step down.
Chad, what about a border wall? We hear all the time that we need to build the wall, and that's a no-brainer, obviously. But what else? What is right there along with the border wall that must be done if you're going to choose yet another priority? And there's so many of them. What is the number one priority? Is the wall the number one priority, or is there a 1 and a 1A here? What's happening?
Well, it's not only the border wall system, but it's a variety of other policies that we had in place. Look, at the end of the day, you've got to bring some enforcement and you've got to bring consequences back to that border. So if someone chooses to cross the border illegally, whether it's in the desert or along that river, there's got to be a consequence to that illegal activity. So you got to bring back programs like the Remain in Mexico, our asylum cooperative agreements, and others that we had in place in 2020 that were working. Of course, those were all torn down on really day one of this administration. And I think we've seen the consequences of that. So it's not only the border wall system, but it's actually effective enforcement priorities and policies that the Border Patrol has advocated for years. During the Trump administration, we actually listened to them and we implemented many of that. And the Biden administration has not done that.
Chad Wolf, a real pleasure. Thanks for being here on American Sunrise. Thanks so much. All right, when we come back, is laughter the best medicine? Well, isn't that hilarious? Actually, the answer may shock you. And we're going to have more on that as we go back to the Villages with Gina, Miranda, and the most liveliest audience you'll see in television in a moment.
top of the hour at the Villages in Florida. That was a live shot. We'll join Gina and Miranda there momentarily. As you can see, the crowd already lively. We appreciate you waking up with us for American Sunrise. From smart watches to smart living, here's a wellness story that's bound to put a smile on your face. Listen to this. A new Brazilian study finds that laughter therapy can reduce the risk of heart disease, and it can improve the health of people already diagnosed with the condition. Patients who watched weekly comedy programs as, quote, non-pharmaceutical intervention showed lower risk of cardiac events compared to those who watched neutral documentaries. Regular laughter was shown to expand heart tissue and promote the flow of oxygen in the body. It also releases endorphins and lowers stress, which can benefit your health. No punchline here, folks. Some researchers actually believe that these results may allow doctors to update their treatment plans with more humor and less reliance on medication. So if laughter doesn't do it for you, an emergency kit from the Wellness Company may be just what the doctor ordered. The kits have a wide range of medications to treat just about anything. Plus, they have a guidebook to help you know what medication to use and when to use it. The kits even have ivermectin and a Z-Pack. Go to twc.health/RAV and use code RAV at checkout to get your emergency kit and 10% off. It's just that simple. All right, let's talk to Miranda and Gina again right now. They are hanging out at the Villages, as I said. And unfortunately, COVID is, or at least that's the narrative, is COVID is making a comeback right now. And that's where, hey, tell that guy to stop walking through. I want to talk to you guys, whoever walked through our camera there. Good morning, you two. I was trying to make a point.
Terrence, I love that laughter piece. Yeah, somebody just walked. You know, that's okay. We're kind of casual and chill here. I love that laughter piece. I thought that was fantastic. And one of the funny questions that came up in the chat, AAA asked, so are we supposed to call them Villages people? Like Village people?
Yeah, I knew what they were going.
I thought it was funny. I got your joke. Terrence and I got your joke, AAA. All right, thanks so much, Terrence. You know, on the topic of health, the daily topic that we seem to be talking about these days, again, and I can't even believe we're having to talk about this, Miranda,
I know.
is COVID confusion. As the numbers of those infected increase, more and more hype and more hysteria and more mandates seem to prevail. When some members of the Villages wanted a say in how the virus was being handled, mandatory vaccines and health passports were not in the equation for them. That's right. These independent patriot warrior residents wanted to be free from fear when making health decisions. Some of their fellow villagers were not pleased, as you can imagine, with their mission. The headline of the local paper blurted this: COVID vaccine doubters urge commissioners to protect health decisions. And after much consternation, the resolution passed. Brian Kennedy is the president of the Republican Assembly. Yeah, you can give yourselves a hand for that. Absolutely. And Brian is the president of the Republican Assembly of Sumter County and was instrumental in getting the county commission to pass the Health Freedom Resolution. Brian, this needs to be imitated, emulated in every single village, town, and city across this country. How did you do it?
Well, I did it with a lot of help from other FRA chapters in the state. So Florida Republican Assembly, we are one of the newer chapters. We started actually around January, and we've grown exponentially. It's been a wonderful journey, and we have got such wonderful supporters and active people. So we're not a club, we're an assembly. We're part of the Florida Republican Assembly, which is part of the National Federated Republican Assemblies, which actually started quite some time ago. It started in the 30s. And then they had splinter groups all over with assemblies. And then in 1996, they grouped together and made the NFRA. So that's what we're part of, and we're proud to be that. And we work through legislative actions, through resolutions. Right now I'm working on an ordinance to ban the jab in Sumter County.
I love that. So can you, one follow-up question if I can. Do you have any statistics for us on how people did, especially in this community of a certain age, in comparison to where the jab and the masks were mandated?
and I don't have exact numbers, but I can tell you because we're an older retiree group, I think that a lot of the propaganda that was put forth from the media and this government was absorbed pretty heavily through our seniors, and a lot of them took the jab. A lot of them wore the mask. I see the mask starting to pop back out again.
Joe Biden's wearing the mask
again.
again.
Joe Biden, he needs to wear 3 or 4 masks.
He does, just for the crimes he's committing. Sorry.
We don't want to hear him anyway.
Exactly. Well, I think it's important just to kind of go back to what you just said, because obviously there people that are watching, they're not all here in Florida, they're not in the villages, but the work that you do here is instrumental because it goes outside of the villages.
Yeah.
You're very proactive. So explain that a little bit, because we were talking about voter integrity the other day, and they were like, it's not just about what we're doing here, it's what we're trying to do for the rest of the country.
Exactly.
Right. So the National Federated Republican Assemblies is currently in 31 states, and we have 9 more on board since we went and spoke at the Mike Lindell Summit. So we had more states jump on board. So we're going to have 39 states, and Puerto Rico also is going to have a Republican Assembly there as well. So it's really growing. This state, we have 18 chapters right now running, and we have 6 more in the wings. So this is growing really big. And like I said, we're
How many members?
18. We got 20. We have 24 chapters within another 3 months.
Wow.
Just in this state.
Is that because of all the people moving to Florida? Yeah, you get a...
Yeah. I don't think it's just because of people moving to Florida. I think people are waking up, and they want to go to work. They're tired of just being entertained. They say, hey, let's go do something. This is the group that does something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. I love that. So what are your predictions as we step off the cliff into what really is election season? What are your predictions? What's going to be different this time from the hell we all experienced in 2020?
I think it's a great awakening of the American people about how elections are run. In our state here, we've got a data pro that's come up and exposed the VR systems and has come up with a fix. And in 5 hours, this group can tell you if there's any ballots that are harvested that are from groups that shouldn't be in there for their votes. So, that's what's going to happen, is people are awake, and they're tired of it. They're not going to put up with it anymore.
Well, we were hearing last night when we were at the Wildwood Community Center is that obviously voter integrity is a huge issue of concern, but the focus was we're just going to get an overwhelming amount of people to go and vote for Trump, that there's no way that he can't win. That's what we were hearing.
Well, he won in 2020. How did that come out? Right? So we have to go through our precincts, get our precinct captains in line, go knock on doors, and get the right people in our RECs to help combat this and make it fair. If it's fair, then Trump's going to win.
100%. Brian Kennedy, we appreciate you being here with us so much. We want to bring in a J6er now. You won't believe this story. Miranda and I were standing with our jaw on the floor this morning when he introduced himself. His name is Jesse Rumson. Jesse, just tell us your story.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here.
So everyone knows January 6th started off as a peaceful, everyday, people celebrating, singing, joyful, and then we were up on the Capitol, doors open, they welcome you in. So I went inside, and they had a black armored clad guys, security on the inside. I thought, oh my gosh, they don't want me in, because you think, oh, this is a secure building. If the door's open, then they must want you inside. If they wanted to keep you out, they would have. So I go inside, I surrender myself to them. I don't want any violence. I don't want any, I don't want to be mistaken as a trespasser or anyone that's going to. So they beat me over the head, pinned me to the floor, and continued to beat me about a dozen of them.
And you showed us pictures of this that you have on your cell phone, and I wish we could show this audience, but just so you know, we've seen the photographs.
Oh, yeah, they gave me a concussion. And then the crowd was so upset at what they were seeing, they came in and they pushed the officers off and brought me outside and let me free. So after that, the government just went completely crazy on me. They went and they started surveilling my house. They started driving by for years.
You woke up in the morning to the sound of
concussion grenades just blowing up outside my window. That
and
was
your own dad thought that they were shooting at you. Your grandfather
my
thought they were
grandfather
shooting.
next door. It was 4:00 in the morning, and they started launching concussion grenades. They came with helicopters, armored vehicles.
Helicopters.
Yeah, full SWAT guys with the laser,
And they
pointers
handed you a warrant.
It had absolutely nothing on it.
A blank warrant.
Yeah, and then they used that same warrant to go to my grandfather's house next door and demand that he turn over his cell phone and his computers to the FBI with no provocation at all. And not just that, but I mean, as they were surveilling me, they put tracer on my car. They dressed up as electrical workers to install cameras outside my house. And this all came out during discovery. I always thought I was.
So this is unofficial court filings.
Yes,
I want people to understand this because you sound crazy when you say things like that. You just sound crazy.
I thought I was paranoid.
But I don't blame you. But this is in official court records that people can access themselves.
I don't know if they can access it, but I've got it through discovery. So they had to come clean with what they did to me. So my lawyers have it, and I've reviewed the documents and I've seen the videos. They have handwritten notes of them following me in my car, writing down every place I go during the day. When I leave my house in the morning, it's been absolutely insane.
With a blank warrant.
With a blank warrant.
So what's your situation now?
Now I'm facing.
You're not in a J6 jail, so praise God for that.
Not yet. I'm sure they want me there. I have a trial coming up in the beginning of February, and they put me on all sorts of crazy. They're charging me with felony assault on an officer. They're charging me with trying to break up an official proceeding. Just I don't know. They're seeking to throw the book at me. So if anybody wants to help out, I have a Give, Send, Go, Jesse Rumson. But we all need to stand up, and everyone needs to take this country back one position at a time. Like you said, the voting integrity, if you can, run for office, run for office. We need good American MAGA patriots in every single place in government.
Yeah.
The way they've weaponized this one is just beyond belief, absolutely beyond belief.
Wow.
Jesse, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me on.
And your family.
Oh, thank you.
And all J6 families, too. Thank you so much. Unbelievable. You're right. When you hear it, it sounds like a movie. It doesn't sound real.
It sounds like a movie you would say isn't believable, by the way.
Yeah.
You'd say, I saw that movie. It was intense, probably not ever realistic. But now I watch movies that they made 10 years ago that I thought were unreasonable. And we hear stories like that, and it's even worse. We're going to have more from the Villages, so you're going to want to stay right where you are because this crowd is revved up and continues to just bring it to us, right? All the patriotism you can imagine right here at the Villages. We'll be back here in just a moment. Stay with us.
minutes away from the top of the hour, so you know what that means. That means it is time for Stay Awake, Not Woke, sponsored by Beardvet Coffee. Beardvet.com is the website to go to. Just use the promo code RAV for 10% off. All right, so listen to this. And David Brody is going to join me here as we kind of read through some of these stories. David, I see you up here. David, I want you to listen to this. This is kind of an interesting story. In today's edition of Stay Awake, Not Woke, conservative activist Kenny Xu is running for Congress in North Carolina. The Republican candidate is ready to take on the woke federal government. His name very well may sound familiar to you because he fought against the anti-Asian discrimination at Harvard University, leading to the Supreme Court's ruling striking down affirmative action at colleges. He has also taken on what he considers harmful diversity, equity, and inclusion policies at U.S. medical schools like the University of North Carolina. Xu says that too many woke policies are being endorsed and funded by the federal government, and he considers the, quote, Biden-Harris agenda to be heavily weighted in favor of encouraging those policies. David, that is just a tease because Kenny Xu will join us live tomorrow morning right here on American Sunrise to share his thoughts about woke politics firsthand. We definitely want everyone out there in TV land to join the conversation on Rumble, Getter, and all of our platforms. Let us know what questions you'd like him to answer. Also, David, and I want to get your thoughts on this next story. While we're on the subject of woke, House Republican Chip Roy has introduced a bill to defund a new woke program at the Marine Corps University in Quantico, Virginia. I didn't even realize there's a Marine Corps University, did some research, found out it is in Quantico, not far from where you are right now in the nation's capital, David. The move comes after the university's Krulak Center announced that it was hosting a, quote, year-long exploration of gender and security. The plan is to ponder questions such as what is gender and how is it different from biological sex? And David, that of course leads to the ultimate politicized question of how do we do diversity in the Department of Defense? I see your ears perking up. Roy says the program is, quote, outright calling for censorship of free discussion, and this type of thing is exactly what is rotting our military from the inside. That is a direct quote from Chip Roy. So David, does Chip Roy have a point here?
He does, Terrence, and you're right. You saw my reaction in the preview monitor, as we like to say here in television. And look, this is what the left wants to do, especially with the gender question. You know, they try to say that gender is different than your biological sex. No, it's not. There are two genders. There are two biological sexes. But as it relates to what God said, and he's the final arbiter of this, God's word, God's standard does not change, even though the world standard changes every single minute of every single day. But that's what they want to do. And so this woke program that we hear so much about is rooted in a very important line there, very important terminology and language, because words matter. And when they talk about gender, that's where they get into 174 and a half genders or whatever it is at this point. I've lost track. But there are only two genders. And the minute you start to delineate between gender and biological sex, that's the road the left wants this world, this country, this society to go down. And that's the stuff that Chip Roy is pushing back against, and many others, obviously.
David, really quickly, you know I'm a brass tacks, a balls and strikes kind of guy. Yeah. Is a military university even the place to have this sort of conversation? I'm all for universities being open to have these highbrow conversations, but this is the military university. Is that the place to be having these sort of conversations?
Yeah, obviously not. And they're even talking about nonviolent masculinities. That's part of, as well as part of this woke program. Nonviolent masculinities. You know what that means, Terrence? That means addressing people with respect, to empathize with people. Yeah, that's fine. Of course we should do that. But now we're terming it nonviolent masculinities. It's just a diss at at what they don't like, which is toxic masculinity, according to them. Anyhow, that's where we're at, Terrence.
We'll have to leave the conversation there, David. Coming up, we are headed back down to the villages for our moment of faith. We're right back in a moment.
the show. It is time now for our moment of faith. And Pastor Derek West grew up in Central Florida and came from a broken family. His father was addicted to crack, and it didn't take long for Pastor West to find himself falling through the cracks. It was a path that took him from being a member of a gang to selling and getting addicted ultimately to drugs. And finally, it landed him behind bars, and then everything crashed. Pastor Derek West joins us now with his compelling story. Welcome. Tell us wow, this is quite a journey to today. Tell us how you got where you are.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be on the show. That's awesome that we're here. And, you know,
It's
God.
an honor for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And, you know, any chance that I can share my story with an audience is amazing, because I believe that God opens those opportunities. So I got involved in drugs, and I'm a 3-time convicted felon.
Wow.
Got involved in selling drugs, selling narcotics, and eventually I started using my own supply. And I ran into a church on 229 in Royal, Florida, 2007, and gave my heart to Jesus Christ. My parents had died, my mother had died of cancer, and my father had died a few years before that. And there just comes a time in your life where God begins to pull on your heart, and you have to make a change. And I just looked at my circumstances and I said, I can't continue doing this anymore. There's a void in my life that I have to fill. And money didn't fill it, because there's plenty of money. The worldly treasures didn't fill it. And when I accepted Jesus Christ, something changed, and I never looked back. And of course, God had to do.
Good for you.
I know, God was good. So God had to do a work in my life as well. There's a development process. And when I got saved, I went to the church. I lived inside a church office, sheriff's department, in the villages. I don't really know how it all worked together, but there's a big support system around me. And then they sent me to New York to go to school. I've got my ordination with the Assemblies of God, and met my wife and beautiful kids. And then 4 years later, we came back to the villages. God gave me a vision then. He said, I didn't just save you to sit on the back row. I saved you to preach the gospel. I saved you to make a difference. And if you think about it, so we talk about the left and the right. So I'm Republican through and through. But if you think about it, there's an idea that people view addiction that's actually destroying our young people. What they're saying is, if you want to get off drugs, you get addicted to another drug, and then taxpayer dollars are paying for welfare cabs and methadone clinics. And the only way that they're going to get sober, if they take that methadone clinic, they say, well, you can't get a job because you have to go get your shot every day. So there's a whole different agenda in our country that is just destroying our young people. And that's a story for another day.
Yeah, tell us about, though, that conversation that you have with God when you realize you've sold drugs, people might be dead out there because of your activities. How do you forgive yourself? What's that? I've always wanted to ask someone that question. Right. What's your conversation with yourself and with God to forgive yourself?
So I had to come to a place where when I realized how much He loved me. Because when I got saved, there was a lot of condemnation, because there's a lot of people that were damaged through my lifestyle, and there's still consequences of those actions. The consequences don't go away. But when I started realizing that I met a Savior that loved me, He doesn't judge me, He doesn't condemn me. No matter what I do, He's there. He doesn't reject me, doesn't turn on me. When I realized how much Jesus loved me, then I began to forgive in my own heart, because I said, if He died on the cross so that I can forgive myself and forgive others, and I don't do that, then whatever Christ did in my life is in vain. So I went through that process, and it was a process. It just happened overnight. It was a journey. And little by little, God just began to reveal fresh revelation to me of who He was. And little by little, He began to reveal His plan for my life. And here I am today with a vision to reach our nation with the gospel, to reach the next generation, and to help people battling with addiction, and to set up crusades in different towns. And our church, we have a church in the village, Encounter Church, that God is blessing and growing, and we're going after young people. We're going after people battling with addiction. We're going after people a lot of people don't want to go after.
Yeah, and that's a challenge. But you've been there, and this is why God uses you, right?
Yes,
uses imperfect people to do perfect things.
Yes,
right?
ma'am. And I'm a living testimony of God's grace.
Well,
yeah, you really are. And I love that it seems to me in your story, the most sophisticated of messages came through in the simplest ways, like, Jesus loves me. I mean, it's such a simple message. We all heard the song. My mom sang it to me when I was a little girl. How simple and how beautiful, but how sophisticated in its perfection.
Well, think about it. the fact that Jesus came to me with 15 grams of drugs in my pocket and a pistol, he came to me, he wrapped his arms around me, and he whispered into my heart, he said, Derek, I love you so much that I've got a plan for your life. And he wrapped his arms around me. He never condemned me. He cleaned me up. He placed me in safe places. He gave me favor and connections. That's the God that we serve, that he will meet you in your mess, whether you're struggling with drugs or you're struggling with a failed marriage or whatever. We serve a God that will come into your bed at night while you're crying tears in the pillow and whisper to you how much he loves you. That's the Jesus we serve, and that's the Jesus that our nation needs to hear and our nation needs to know, is that Jesus. And that's my heart, is to share the gospel wherever I go.
We're hearing it now.
Yes, ma'am.
So can I get an amen to that? Right?
Absolutely. All right, we'll be back in just a moment. We are here at the Villages, as you can see. Miranda and I, more great, real Americans for you to talk to. We'll be back here at the Villages in just a moment. Stay with us.
Coming up on this second hour of American Sunrise, we are live from the Villages. And in moments, find out why this beautiful little community of retirees is more of a microcosm of mainstream America.
Plus, we're uncovering new information about who's crossing into this country illegally and where they're coming from. Ahead, brand new video from our crime and border team along the border between Arizona and Mexico.
And inside the deep state, Kash Patel here with his look at the cabal of government gangsters who will do anything to hold on to power. All of that and more on this second hour of American Sunrise.
We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
1 hour down, 1 hour to go, Miranda. Here we are. How awesome is this day?
It's wonderful. We are live at City Fire American Oven and Bar here at the Villages, and we love this place. We were here last night. Couldn't get enough of it, so we're back here again.
I know, even the menu's a little original here. I loved the beef stroganoff last night. I'm not sure. I can't remember what you had.
I had the salmon salad, and it was divine. They had like those golden raisins and like sesame seeds and little goat cheese. I'm just saying, I highly recommend it.
I'm going to have some hash browns after the show. Just saying.
Definitely. We're going to have breakfast / lunch here. Well, yes. David, how's your appetite this morning? You join us live again in D.C.
Did you get your oatmeal? Most importantly, David, did you get your oatmeal? We need to know. America needs to know.
Yeah, America, clearly the burning question in America right now, did I get my oatmeal? For sure. I did, number one. And let me just say, when it comes to dietary needs, when I was in the Villages, I've been there a couple of times. I had the best pastrami sandwich in the world in the Villages, let me just say. And I'm from New York, so I'm talking Katz Delicatessen, which of course has great pastrami, but they had wonderful pastrami in the Villages, so I love it there. It's an oasis. The Villages is so wonderful. It's like an oasis in the middle of all of the chaos in America. So I'm glad you're there. And Terrence, I'm glad you're in Denver with the headlines. What would we do without you, Terrence Bates? T-Bates, T-Man?
You would eat pastrami. That's what you would do without me, and I would like to join you on that. Let's start in East Palestine, Ohio, which is getting nearly $900,000 for mental health services in the aftermath of the toxic train derailment there some 7 months ago. The money is being handed out in the form of an emergency grant from the federal government to the Ohio Department of Mental Health. As the town deals with the after effects of February's spill, President Biden still hasn't been there to visit despite promising to do so. In case you happen to miss it, he was asked about why he's neglected to visit despite taking trips to disaster-ravaged Hawaii and Florida just in the last few weeks.
Well, I haven't had the occasion to go to East Palestine. There's a lot going on here, and I just haven't been able to break. I was thinking whether I'd go to East Palestine this week, but I then was reminded I've got to go literally around the world. I'm going from Washington to India to Vietnam and so it's going to be a while.
By the way, Mr. President, it's pronounced East Palestine. The derailment there was 7 months ago. Since then, the president is vacationing in California. He's taking trips abroad. He was even in Philadelphia for Labor Day, which of course is just a short flight from East Palestine. Critics believe the commander-in-chief is overlooking the small town because it voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump in 2020. Former leader of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio, is planning on an appeal this morning after being slapped with the longest prison sentence yet related to the January 6th demonstration and riot at the U.S. Capitol. The 39-year-old is headed to prison for 22 years after being convicted of seditious conspiracy. What's interesting here is that he wasn't even in the nation's capital on January 6th, but was still convicted of planning the events that transpired that day. In his ruling, the judge said, quote, Mr. Tarrio was the ultimate leader of that conspiracy. Mr. Tarrio was the ultimate leader, the ultimate person who organized, was motivated by revolutionary zeal. The 22-year prison sentence is still far less than the 33 years that prosecutors were asking for. That's a quick check of your headlines. Now, let's get you back to Dr. Gina and Miranda, who were there at the Villages. And ladies, I'm sorry, but our last guest, you guys took me back to VBS, Vacation Bible School. I've been singing, yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, I've been singing that since that interview.
Love that song.
Yeah, we're all full of faith today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been great. You had that great prayer at the beginning before we even started the broadcast. You did the Bible verse, and then we had this incredible moment of faith, and we were trying not to cry.
We were both trying not to cry. Makeup might be a little smeared, but that happens.
Yeah, but what an inspiring story, though.
Really
yeah,
beautiful.
So great to have more. Meeting so many amazing people here at the Villages. Thank you guys so much.
And
really.
every one of them has their own marching orders. That's what I think is so amazing. Every person we've met, all yesterday, all last night, all today, they're like, this is what I'm doing to save America. And they have a plan, like a roadmap.
And these people are like supposed to be retired, like sitting back now, like Joe
Putting
Biden.
us to shame,
like, wow, that's retired.
Yeah.
Turning now, though, to a pressing matter facing all of us here in America. Who is the deep state, and what are its goals?
Right.
To those in the know, it's a sinister cabal of corrupt law enforcement personnel, intelligence agents, and military officials at the highest levels of government. So what is the deep state's goal? Getting its candidates elected to office and amassing power? The question, can it be defeated, and can we restore our republic?
Well, in his new book, Government Gangsters, The Deep State, the Truth, and the Battle for Our Democracy, Real America's Voice contributor Kash Patel, who is, of course, was a former top official in the White House, the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, and the Department of Justice. Anyway, he's ripping the veil off of the deep state. We had a chance to catch up with him a little earlier as he prepared to meet his fans, awaiting their chance to get their hands on his new book. By the way, I got one. He promised it to me on air, and I got one. I just want to say he kept that promise.
Good.
I started out by asking him this question, though. Who were the gangsters?
You're lucky. There's a list in the back of all of them.
You want him to spill some tea?
Perfect. I love cheat sheets.
That's what she's trying to do.
Cliff notes. I
thought you were trying to get him to spill some tea.
You know what's funny, though? I thought I would list a lot of Democrats, and I listed a bunch, but I think I listed more Republicans. You know, guys like Rod Rosenstein, James Comey, Andy McCabe, Chris Wray, Chris Christie. The list goes on. Merrick Garland, of course, a Democrat. But, I mean, what was shocking to me when I was in the administration was, why are these guys fighting us to prevent us from getting the truth out?
Right.
And it's all because they hated Donald Trump. And once we left, I never wanted to write a book. This is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it again. But
you say that you have children's books.
No, those are easy. Those are like 15 pages with graphics. There's no graphics in here. It's all words. And so Devin, one of my mentors and friends, Devin Nunes, was like, look, you just got to write the story down, and however it goes, it goes. And that's kind of what went into this, and we'll see how it takes.
But you said you didn't want to write a book, so what was it that finally, what was the straw that broke the camel's back that you're like, all right, I'll let everyone know?
As you'll see in here, I was surrounded by a great team, the president's speechwriters. We worked together. They came up to me and said, you got to do it. And I talked to Devin. He's like, you got to do it. And I was like, that's so much work. And I was fortunate and blessed that they came up with a lot of the foundational work for it. And they knew how I operated, because we operated together in the White House, and I think it made it a lot easier. What was funny is we wrote the book in 3 months. It took another 10 months to sue the Biden administration to get it released.
Wow. I remember that. Did you think it almost wasn't going to happen?
Yeah, we sued them. Of course, you got to pay tens of thousands of dollars to lawyers, go to federal court. They don't want it out. And what's funny is, and you guys will see this, they were like worried about redactions for national security. And they redacted less than 1% of the book, less than 10 lines on 10 pages. And it was the same word over and over again, which me and my lawyers thought was hilarious. And at some point, I'll tell you guys. Maybe.
I was going to say, come on, you can't leave us. I want to know what the word is, don't you?
Well, that's one of the most interesting things about writing a book, and I've written almost 6 now.
Wow.
And my question to you, though, there's always that point where you're editing the book, you're rereading your own words, and you go, wow, I can't believe I lived that. What was that moment?
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
I have no idea what's in here. I've been through it so many times.
Yeah.
Like you take edits, you take sections, you take pages,
Right.
and you do the final edit and the final review, and there's so much back and forth, and you're just like, okay. And then you just let it go for months and months because they don't want you to have it out. And I think honestly, the moment for me was when we won in federal court.
Yeah.
And they came back and said, your manuscript's going to get released. And I was like, wow, finally, 9 months later.
Wow. Talking about that.
And it's hilarious. As a national security guy, you're like, okay, I'm all about, let's not divulge secrets. Let's protect sources and methods. Yeah, that's what we did.
Sure.
But you know what? Chris Wray's FBI held up the book, maybe the second longest. They returned it without edits in 1 day after our lawsuit.
Wow.
That's amazing.
That's impressive.
amazing. What is this book going to do to help elect President Trump?
Well, as President Trump has dubbed it, the roadmap for 2024, hopefully just that. I mean, the point of the whole book is not my ride through government. The point is to tell everyone in America how you can go out there and find one line of effort, education, healthcare, whatever, and drive hard till next November with President Trump leading the charge, and you can and will win. And when you do, then this is what it's going to take in here to save this government and this country from the weaponization of justice, intelligence, election rigging, and I mean, everything you guys cover on a daily basis.
So for the people that unfortunately can't be here, like these cool people at the Wildwood Community Center and the Villages, for people who can't be here but want to get your book, where do they go?
Yeah, so it's on pre-order right now. Amazon.com and governmentgangsters.com is the only place you get signed copies. We're doing both, and I think it ships in about 12 days.
Okay.
But what's cool about this event, again, is one, I didn't think anyone would ever call me. Two, the Villages called, and my publisher was like, do you want to go to Florida? I'm like, yeah. What is there going to be, like 7 people there? And they were like, no, you need to sign like 350 books. So we have a signed copy for everyone in attendance here, and they're going to be the first folks to read.
Like that.
I love
Very
that.
nice. Well,
and
best
2
of
extra
luck.
for Miranda and me, right?
I've got this one. I was only able to carry one, but they're over there. So I've got 2 copies, one for each. Actually, you'll be the first 2 I give it to.
Oh, wow. That's
See?
amazing.
That's
That's
like
out of
a
my
big
parents.
deal. I think I'm going to stick, though, to children's books. I think I'll stick with that.
Yes.
Thank
I
you so much.
understand.
Best of luck to you, Cash.
Thank you, ladies, for being here in Florida
Yeah,
for the
we're
launch.
proud of you. Thanks for being with us. All right. Speaking, that wasn't he great? How many of you got to see him last night?
Yeah.
So in the world of government gangsters, there's only one thing you can do, and that is to drain the swamp. And it is time to drain the swamp.
As you see on our screen, our Drain the Swamp segment is sponsored by Sea of Mud. SeaofMud.com. Just use the promo code RAV1776 and you can score yourself 15% off. Lots of cool items there, everything from knives to very cool t-shirts. They even have bathing suits. Not that I would buy a bathing suit, but lots of very cool stuff on there. Go check it out. There are new emails that explain why Burisma gave Hunter Biden his cushy board seat on top of the $10 million bribe that the company paid Joe and Hunter for the access and legal protection, or the alleged bribe. Check out this headline. Hunter was more chummy with the higher tiers of power in the Obama-Biden administration than we actually knew. An email from a top aide to then Secretary of State John Kerry says that Kerry and Hunter had a close friendship and that Hunter asked Kerry to speak to his Georgetown University grad students in 2014. Other emails indicate that Hunter Biden met with or had ties to other top officials during the Obama-Biden administration, throughout which Hunter was involved in multiple foreign business dealings. So, Burisma didn't pay Hunter millions of dollars for the illusion of access. The access allegedly was real, Miranda, and this is a story that really is buzzing, and there's still so many questions being raised about the kind of access that Hunter Biden was not just selling, but was in fact peddling, ladies.
Yeah, I just don't know what we're waiting for. Every time I hear something about Hunter and Joe Biden, I'm like, what is it going to take to pull the trigger here?
Yeah, I don't know, because they sure seem to know how to do it for Republicans and especially Trump. But, you get to the Bidens, or we saw it with the Clintons, we saw it with the Obamas. We've seen it with every Democrat administration, never with any administration like this horrendous regime.
And
Never.
I think we're going to see more, too, with James Comer now looking into Barack Obama. And I think they still need to look some more into the Clinton Foundation. I think you're right.
Well, there's a lot of investigating that still needs to happen, ladies. We appreciate it. We're going to check back with you there in the Villages here momentarily. But up next, commemorating a tragedy from thousands of miles away. Find out how folks in the Villages are going to be joining their neighbors in New York and all around the world on the 22nd anniversary of the terror attack on 9/11. We're back in a moment. 23 minutes past the top of the hour. A lovely look at the Villages there in Florida. We'll check back with Miranda and Gina, who were hanging out there for the past couple of days. But before we head back to the Villages, we want to update you on some economic news that you need to know about. China is ramping up its competition with the United States over semiconductor production. The communist nation is seeking to raise just over $40 billion as part of a new state-backed investment fund to spur its semiconductor sector and to catch up with the U.S. and other rivals around the world. The fund will reportedly invest in equipment for chip manufacturing. The move comes on the heels of Chinese President Xi Jinping stressing the need for China to achieve self-sufficiency in semiconductors. That need has become more pressing for the Chinese after the U.S. imposed a series of export control measures related to Chinese chips over fears that China was using semiconductors and other chips to get a military advantage over the United States. As a result, Congress passed the CHIPS Act to encourage the growth of U.S. semiconductor production. As we await the start of the stock market to open, I'll, of course, get you back to Gina and Miranda, who are standing by at the Villages right now with more. The market will be opening up in about 6 minutes, ladies.
Thanks so much, Terrence. On Monday, Americans across the country and people around the world will remember the 3,000 souls that lost their lives on September 11th. Now, on that day, almost 22 years ago, hard to believe, firefighter Stephen Siller was assigned to Brooklyn Squad 1. He had just finished his shift and was on his way to play golf with his brothers when he got word of a plane hitting the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Now, upon hearing that news, Stephen called his wife, Sally, and asked her to tell his brothers that he would catch up with them later. He returned to Squad 1 to get his gear.
Stephen drove his truck to the entrance of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, but it had already been closed for security purposes. Determined to carry out, though, his duty, he strapped 60 pounds of gear to his back, and he raced on foot through the tunnel to the Twin Towers, where he gave up his life while trying to save others. In his memory, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation was created and a tribute to Stephen and those who died on that terrible day. Pam Pretty is a proud member of the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation, and she joins us live now. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
What an incredible story.
It is.
60 pounds he put on.
Yep.
And rushed toward it. That's a man of courage.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And the whole foundation is the same way. And over the last, since 9/11, they have contributed over $500 million to provide mortgage-free homes for Gold Star families and fallen first responders with children, and to build smart homes for catastrophically injured veterans and first responders.
That's incredible.
It really is.
What does it feel for you yourself to be a part of this organization? Because I think everyone in this room, we can all recall where we were that day, what we were doing, and to help all those people whose lives have been forever changed.
Absolutely. I'm so proud to be part of this amazing organization. Here in the Villages, I'm the volunteer race director for the first 5K that we're going to have here November 4th.
That's exciting.
Yep. It'll be November 4th at the Polo Club, and the time will start at 9/11. And we just love having all the villagers who have registered and volunteered, and we're still looking for more. So if you're in the Villages and would like to volunteer.
She's talking to you, by the way, just so all of you can hear. We have some volunteers in the house. We'll get you covered.
Thank you.
But in a day when our government is funding the enemy, in a day when even our charities are funding an open border that is destroying our sovereignty and killing our children and our future, do you find that people are more ready to be involved with an organization like Tunnel to Towers, where they can do something to make a difference for families and survivors?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what an amazing foundation. they give more than 95% to give back to.
And that's
to
huge.
It is.
That's
huge.
really difficult to do, by the way. I've been a part of many charitable organizations. 95% is a stellar number.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, usually, there's only a few that even do 10%, right? That they're able
Right.
to do. Yeah, exactly. So, I have to ask you, going to Gina's point, Tara Dahl, who is one of our members here of Real America's Voice, she said something, I think it was on American Sunrise with us, saying that we're no more safer than we were on that day. And obviously we've had a record number of terrorists that have come across our borders. We're spending more to protect Ukraine's borders than our own, and we're continuing to do so.
Sadly.
How disturbing is that for you, and especially thinking about all the people, again, whose lives were forever changed from that day, that we have not learned our lessons?
Well, of course, I agree with all of that, and I wish that more would be done to help those that are here and that did sacrifice their lives for us and for our borders and keeping us safe. And
if Joe Biden was sitting right here, what would you tell him? I'm just curious. If Joe Biden was here, or Alejandro Mayorkas,
She seemed like such a nice lady until you asked
She's
that
like,
question.
right? She's like, I got a whole list. Let me tell you. No, I'm just curious though, because of all the hard work that you're doing, and when I think about that day, and we see what's going on, border crisis, economic crisis, and again, our own Tara Dahl is saying we're no more safer. What would you say to him if he was sitting right here?
Well, yeah, thanks.
That we can say on TV.
Prioritize our own citizens and our own heroes, and help those who are helping us and keeping us safe and protecting us. And we owe them that.
Well, there are folks back there saying citizens arrest is what they would say.
Thank you so much for what you do. And you're going to have a lot more volunteers, I think.
I hope so.
Pam, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, we want to head back to Terrence for a quick check of headlines sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Well, the bell just rang. The markets on Wall Street are now open. Unfortunately, opening on a negative note. The S&P 500, the Dow, and the NASDAQ all in the red right now. Even futures were in the red. So we're hoping for an uptick here throughout the day. But now that the markets are open, there is a bit of a warning for investors from Morgan Stanley's Chief Investment Officer, Michael Wilson. Wilson believes there's too much optimism in stock prices right now. He also says a potentially softer September and October aren't being priced into many stocks and expectations. As a result, quote, at current prices, markets are now expecting a meaningful reacceleration in growth that we think is unlikely this year, especially for the consumer. According to Bloomberg, other major bank top brass also appear to be pessimistic about the markets. Bank of America is even predicting a harder economic landing. Tragedy can happen at any moment, and that's why it is smart to invest in emergency food right now. As they say, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. My Patriot Supply is the nation's leader in high-quality emergency food. Head to preparewithrav.com and you'll save $200 on your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Enjoy a wide variety of delicious meals offering over 2,000 calories every day for optimum strength under stress. Stock up before the panic sets in and grocery store shelves are bare. Free shipping is also automatic and your order ships fast. So again, go to preparewithrav.com. That's preparewithrav.com to place your order. Well, coming up, we're going to get saucy next. Don't miss it because you definitely are going to enjoy the stories that we have to share. We're also going to get you back to Dr. Gina and Miranda live at the Villages.
finest. It's red, white, and blue. Gotta get out and try it. Red State Barbecue. Red State Barbecue.
Welcome back, everyone. Terrence Bates here on This American Sunrise. We appreciate you being here with us. This segment coming up is sponsored by Red State Barbecue. RedStateBarbecue.com. Just use the promo code RAV10 for 10% off. RedStateBarbecue.com. Promo code RAV10 for 10% off. First in the sauce, former Democratic National Committee Chairwoman Donna Brazile. She says that she has, quote, never seen anything like the political movement led by former President Donald Trump as he solidifies support within the GOP. Brazile likened the movement to two others that she has witnessed in her lifetime, and that will be Ronald Reagan's hold on the conservative base and Barack Obama's ability to galvanize people with change. So let's watch exactly what she had to say.
I've never seen anything like this with Donald Trump. I mean, what doesn't kill you make you stronger? I mean, being convicted, being indicted, that's making him stronger. Raising $10 million using an ugly mugshot to raise money. This is a movement. And anyone who thinks that you can apply the old political rules to trying to defeat this candidate, this is a movement. And we have to respect the fact that it's a movement.
At least she expects the fact that it's a movement. This all came as most polls show that Trump and Biden are now tied in a hypothetical rematch. And David, your thoughts on all this? The one thing that strikes me is that she slipped and said, yeah, someone convicted, someone just charged. That in and of itself is probably telling, but we'll go to the actual substance of what she said, specific to the fact that Donald Trump is leading a movement.
For sure. And let me do a quick disclaimer here, Terrence. I know Donna Brazile. I've known her for 15 years. We are friendly. I know that might not endear me to certain people in the audience today, but that's the truth. I mean, she's not a bad person at all, but she's onto something. And what she's onto is she's right. It is a movement, and I'm glad she's recognized that. I mean, she's far left. She's wacko on the policies, but in terms of her political analysis, she's spot on. And remember, it's not just about being a movement here, Terrence. It's really a continuation of something that's been bubbling in America for a long time now. We saw the remnants, or I shouldn't say the remnants, the beginning seeds of this with the Tea Party movement in 2010. Donald Trump became a vessel for the MAGA movement now. But this started a while back. So this is we the people rising up saying we're not going to take it anymore. I believe this is Act 2, Part 2 of what we saw. Part 1 was the Tea Party. And but she's right. She's definitely onto something.
And David, we're not going to harp on this, but the whole characterization of this being a movement, it seems that America First is now not just the movement, but it is the base of the Republican Party.
Well, that's right. And as a matter of fact, this afternoon, we're going to hear Mike Pence talk about populism versus conservatism. He's going to give a big speech in New Hampshire. We'll cover it tomorrow on American Sunrise. But he's going to make the case for traditional conservatism over populism. But you're right, Terrence. The party is populist now, or at least more populist than it ever has been in the past. And so that's basically where the Republican Party finds itself today.
Well, David, I'll let you get to talking about Homeland Security, because America First truly is about securing our homeland.
Well, it is, and someone needs to clue the Biden administration into the fact that it's important to secure the homeland. They've been doing, wait for it, a horrible job. I'm sorry, did I just have an understatement there? A horrible job here trying to control the border. As a matter of fact, we've got new statistics that just came out about border crossings in America in the month of August. 91,000 arrests. It sets a record. Let's bring in Tara Dahl, who, of course, with the National Security Council, and, of course, a Real America's Voice contributor. Tara, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David. Good morning. It's good to be with you.
Well, it's great to see you again, and we bring you on often because you have often, as a matter of fact, all the time, you have great information to impart to our audience. I'm curious to get your take on these latest numbers. Look, this is August. In a very hot area down there at the border. I don't mean hot in terms of arrests. I'm talking about hot weather. You would think that typically there'd be somewhat of a decrease, but we're getting record numbers still in August.
Yeah, record numbers were set. The Biden border crisis is continuing to get worse, and the data is proving it. In August, it was a 30% increase from numbers from July. There was 30% increase from June. And why does this matter? We're seeing 187,000 apprehensions now for the month of August. 91,000 family units were apprehended. That's a record setting. That's breaking all records, especially under the Biden administration. It's the first time that we've seen more family units apprehended than single adults. And why is this? This is a direct result of Biden's open border policies, because in May, the Biden administration stopped all DNA testing. So you can no longer verify if children are with their actual biological mother or father. And then in July, the Biden administration again allowed Honduran family reunification, so allowing Honduran families to cross over. So that's why you're seeing these record numbers of family units crossing over into the United States.
Tara, I've got about a minute left, but, we had Chad Wolf on earlier, the former acting U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, who said, he not only said it in our interview, but he said it in front of Congress. This is a quote. He said, "This is a crisis by design by the Biden administration." I'm curious to get your take on that, because you mentioned the DNA, and we know about Title 41. Tell me a little bit, Title 42, excuse me. Tell me a little bit more about this issue here as it relates to this being all by design, and what is the ultimate goal here by the Biden administration?
Well, I think it goes along. There is no explanation for Biden's open border policies. And then you have the White House actually lying and spewing out lies from the podium, as we saw last week, saying that Biden has done more to secure the border than any other president. That's absolutely false. And these numbers prove that, because his policies we're seeing the numbers are a direct result of these policies. When you're not allowing DNA testing, when you're allowing these Honduran reunification, when you're doing the legalization of illegal immigrants through the CBP One app. We had 50,000 migrants cross legally, but actually illegally through the Biden administration using that CBP One app. So this month we saw 230,000 illegal immigrants crossing into the United States. That sets a record. We've seen 6 million now illegal immigrants under the Biden administration alone. 1.7 million known gotaways.
Tara Dahl, great to have you here. By the way, can I get your brain for a day? Do you rent out your brain? I'll take it. By the way, thank you so much. Appreciate it. But she's gone. She's been raptured into Skype universe. All right, Gina and Miranda joining us. They've not been raptured. They're here. They're live, and they've got a big audience. Ladies.
That was probably my favorite David Brody moment. Can I rent out your brain, Tara? Can I rent out your brain?
We'd all like to rent Tara's brain for
I know.
a day.
She is brilliant and beautiful. Joining us now is, you probably know him more by name, but now you get to see the face, right?
His face.
This is Carefree. So
Carefree Largo.
Carefree
Don't
Largo.
forget the last name. Very important.
That is very important. And Carefree, it's so wonderful to meet you here in person. For those of you who join us on Getter, who participate in some of the chat there, probably recognize Carefree Largo. And so we reached out to the RAV moderators, and we were like, we need to get him on.
We want him on.
And specifically, Zen Master was like, can we get Carefree Largo? And they were like, oh, yeah. So you made his day, and you're making our day.
Well,
so thank you for coming out here.
Day. Thank you very much for having me. And I'd like to say hello to all you Ravagers out there. It's my crowd. I love those Ravagers. I love Real America's Voice. People always ask me why I go out and talk about Donald Trump. And I correct them all the time and tell them I don't go out and talk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump goes out and talks about me and you and everybody else, because he has our best interests at heart. It'll be a fine, fine day when we see him walk back in that White House.
Cannot wait. Tell us how it is. You told me a fun story, but you don't have to tell that story. But you can just tell us how it is that you became such a loyal RAV watcher, because you're tops.
Well, I got to tell you, I appreciate that very much. I got very, very sick of the mainstream media, particularly Fox News. And one night I decided to start flipping through the channels until I heard somebody specifically telling me the truth. Mm-hmm. And the first person I stopped on was Dr. Gina Lowther. And I got to tell you, I've put it on that channel every night since, and I'll keep doing it every night until you're somewhere else, and then we'll go there. After that, I found LFS6B.
Yes,
and of course got to see the incomparable Harry Oates on that.
And Harry did a great job on that
He's
show.
here right now. You just made the Ricks and Damon they're like.
Oh, I'm telling you.
That's right.
Yeah.
They make my day 5 days a week. I always say LFS6B is the best 2 hours of every single night. If you're missing them, you're missing out.
Oh,
no
you
doubt
really
about
are.
it.
So funny and so informative at the same time somehow. And I don't understand that because most shows that are that funny are not that informative.
Right.
It's true.
But Live from Studio 6B manages to do both. It's so fun having you in the chat with all of us during the show. We love you. Keep the momentum up. You keep everybody's mood up. Lots of great, loyal folks in there. What's your best advice to those folks out there who maybe they just caught on to Rav and maybe they've watched a little bit, but they're not all in like Carefree Largo?
Well, if you want to get all in, just start with the mindset of this is your country. This country was set about by God Himself to be a land for Christians to worship God in the way He wants to be worshiped. Not to be told by any other man how to live your life, but to go out and live your life for God. And if you want to start, that's a great place to start.
Well, thank you for being a part of our Rav family.
You are absolutely.
We really do appreciate
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a
Because
blast.
We mean that. We don't just
Largo,
say that.
everybody.
We mean that. So thank you, Carefree
Yes.
Largo.
Thank
and
you
you
very
look
much.
amazing. I love this ensemble,
He's
right?
quite dapper,
wow.
man.
Well dressed.
Yeah,
Well
quite
dressed,
dapper.
man.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thanks for being on.
Up next, we'll spill some tea with some of the locals here in Florida. Keep it right here. You're watching American Sunrise.
Freedom-loving patriots are falling in love with America's barbecue sauce, Red State Barbecue. Red State's 8 different sauces are perfect for whatever sparks your barbecue palate. Visit redstatebbq.com. That's redstatebbq.com and use promo code RAV10 for 10% off. Red State Barbecue. Let's spill some tea.
And welcome back to American Sunrise. We, of course, course, are live here at the Villages. And, of course, this segment is sponsored by Artillery Tea Company, artillerytco.com. Use that promo code RAV and save yourself 10%.
Remember, Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf. You can use every bag twice, and I do.
Yes, and you definitely do. And Terrence Cates, he uses it like 3 times. Great company. They help veterans. They help first responders. Awesome company.
Speaking of drinking and eating,
yes,
in the world of the Villages, City Fire American Oven and Bar is a beautiful restaurant. It's where we are right now. And it's not only a great place to you can do everything here. Grab a great meal, also a place to catch up with your neighbors and spill some tea. Yes. So joining us right now, Mike and Gina Buell, and they are the owners of City Fire. We are so glad and so
love it here.
Thank you. And we love our villagers.
Yeah, I have never heard a good thing about owning restaurants. Everyone says how stressful, how, the manpower just isn't there, how it's all hours of the night, all the rest, the food, the complaints, the customers. You have nothing but great things to say, and your family has been doing this for generations and generations. Tell us.
Yes, I am a 6th-generation restaurateur.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, my
6th
family,
generation.
Yes, my family came over from Spain, landed in Cuba. My great-grandfather landed in Cuba in 1895 and ran out of money. And so he started working as a bar back. And a gentleman came in that was from the United States with a cigar company. And he said, do you want to come to the United States? My grandpa was like, great. Worked there for years. And then we started the Columbia restaurant. We had a little restaurant called La Fonda, and that was going out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, I'll hold on. My microphone.
Okay. I'm the same way. They're always telling me, put it towards your mouth. I talk with my hands. I talk with my hands too. I know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah. So a little restaurant called La Fonda, and then when Prohibition came along, that the Columbia was going to go out of business. So they partnered, and were partners till 1939, when my family sold and went down and did Las Novedades, which was a restaurant that was going out of business, and it was the very first restaurant under my great-grandfather and my father to win a national award for excellence back then.
Wow. And you said your family has owned like a great diversity of restaurants as well.
Yeah, we span the spectrum from fast food to Four Diamond. Mm-hmm.
Fast food to Four Diamond. I mean, that's...
Yep.
that really is such an amazing legacy and tradition. And you can feel it in the walls of this place.
Thank you.
You all do everything right. I had the beef stroganoff last night. It was fantastic. But there were people dancing, having a good time. Like, the music was perfect. The decor is perfect. You feel like you're in someone's living room, but in like an old world way, in a cool way. Tell us about that.
Well, after my father retired, we bought one restaurant in Sumter Landing. It was called Urban Flats. And so we were changing it, obviously. And our designer came up with the name City Fire. And I was like, what does City Fire mean? That doesn't mean anything. It sounds like we're just trying to take a spin off of Urban Flats. And so, Latin family, spaghetti and meatballs every Sunday at my parents' house.
Yeah.
And my dad and I were sitting there talking, going back and forth about it, when my daughter, who was 3 at the time, now she's a senior in high school, she comes up and she wanted an app on the iPad. And my dad was so amazed that his daughter could work an iPad better than her. We started talking about the differences in generations. Mm-hmm. And that's when we decided that City Fire needs to celebrate the greatest generation. And that's why it's City Fire American Oven and Bar.
Love that story. Don't you guys love that story?
And every picture that you see, all the black and whites, all of the chandeliers, each one has a story. And like this one, for example, that chandelier right there had to be rewired because it was in the Jerome Hotel.
And the people at home, we can't see it yet, but you will be able to see it. But it's beautiful. The decor here, a lot of thought went into everything that you see in this restaurant, for sure. Mike, I want to get you on the conversation here. We were talking about the Villages, and when we talk about a large group of retirees, probably the largest group of retirees in the country, people think of, well, it's going to be quiet and sleepy town. It was not quiet. I can tell you right now.
No.
We were here last night.
Right, everybody? Not here.
No,
not here. Come on, let me hear you. Hey.
Definitely not got quiet. Definitely want to share their voice as much as possible, and they're doing what they can to help save this country. How does it feel for you to be a part of that?
To me, I mean, it's a blessing that we're here to be with these great people, because they really stood for what America's about, and they bring it here, and they patronize the true American dream and what they've done and worked so hard, and we celebrate this thing every night.
Well, thank
Dancing,
you.
drinking.
Yeah, well, we did it last night, so thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad you guys had a great dinner.
We did, and we hope we can come back.
Absolutely.
And thank all of you, really, for your hospitality and inviting us here and being a part of our family. We really do appreciate it. It's an honor.
Thank you so much for coming. We can't wait to come back, by the way, with the rest of our co-hosts and our family and friends. This is just an amazing place.
It is.
Thank you so much.
American.
We're so happy to have you.
And the food is divine.
Thank you.
Next, we'll wrap things up here at the Villages with a preview of an amazing event happening down here Saturday. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. You're watching American Sunrise.
And we're going to rock the place out for Donald Trump. We need to get groups all over the country out doing things like that, because his hands are tied up right now. We need to be Donald Trump's voice right now.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Best of luck to you.
Tell us, you've been a Rav person for a while too. Tell us a little bit. We go way back, Pastor Jeff.
Yeah, Gina was a Politichick back then.
Oh my gosh, that's dark ages. Yeah.
But when I started ministry, we moved out to Missouri, southern Missouri, and we pastored outside of Springfield. Yeah. And the first year I was pastoring, they felt bad, so they let me do the invocation at graduation. And I started out doing the worst thing. I was a Pentecostal.
30 seconds left.
I told everybody, reach out.
Yes, Pastor, we're going to have you on again on American Sunrise. Love your story. Want to hear more about it, how the two of you met. But real quickly, David, Terrence, thank you guys for holding on the fort.
Tomorrow we have a major lineup. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee.
Yes.
Current South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Larry Elder. So much more.
Don't go anywhere. Steve Bannon is up next from the War Room.
And David Brody is up at 4 p.m.
Oh, I thought you were going to fall over. Have a great day.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish, in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Start with your first chart. Decades of ideological sorting may have brought us here.
Yes, Willie. I think one theory about why Republicans are sticking so closely to Trump is a kind of idea of tribalism. And the Wall Street Journal had an interesting analysis of this the other day. And so let's take a look at what's been happening among party members in the various parties over the last several decades, because this is actually a long-run phenomenon. But if you go back to the late 1970s, you can see that only about 30% of Republicans identified themselves as conservative, and almost 20% of Democrats identified themselves as conservative. And then if you fast forward over those decades, you can see what's happened. And we all, I think, probably intuitively thought this is where we are now. Maybe we didn't think about where we were then. But you can see that now about 60% of Republicans call themselves conservative, and only about 5% of Democrats call themselves conservatives. When you talk, everything I just said is about liberals. I apologize. When you talk about conservatives, you see a similar trend. You can see that back in the 1970s, less than 50% of Republicans consider themselves conservative. Today, over 70% do. And the same thing, the reverse has happened with Democrats. Almost 30% considered themselves conservative back then. And today, that number is down to just 10%. So you can see that basically, on an ideological basis, Americans have kind of gone into their corners.
Yeah, another really surprising development, and we can't put this just down to Trump. It's something that I noticed even in my races back in the 1990s. Republicans were supposed to win well-to-do, suburban sort of country club types, and Democrats were supposed to win working-class voters. I noticed in our crosstabs and looking at the districts after we won that I did extremely well among in the blue collar areas, and what we're seeing now is a continuation of that sorting pretty dramatically now, where Republicans are still making gains among working class voters, but they're losing an awful lot of suburban voters. And the breakdown seems to come, Steve, more than race, more than income, more than anything, on education, as far as what's the last year of their educational status. Are they high school grads? Are they college grads? Are they post grads? And boy, there's a real sorting there, isn't there?
Yeah, Joe, we talked about ideological sorting. Let's talk about educational sorting. And we all talk a lot about how non-college educated whites have moved toward Trump. There's a lot of truth to that, but there's actually a longer run phenomenon here. Let's start with whites with college degrees. And you can see, as you would have imagined back in 1990, 55% of whites with college degrees identified themselves as Republicans, and only about 40% of Democrats identified themselves with college degrees as Democrats. And so then you can see the percentage of people with whites with college degrees who identified as Democrats goes up, and the percentage of Republicans with college degrees goes down. And so we've had this flip, and you can see here it did happen a little bit faster during the Trump period, when whites with college degrees moved more to Democrats and away from Republicans. And then you can see that if you look at whites without college degrees, the so-called working class whites that we talk a lot about, they were actually surprisingly evenly divided between the two parties until about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. And then you started to have this shift that we've all talked so much about, where whites without college degrees moved into the Republican Party and out of the Democratic Party.
And that really shows up in support for Donald Trump in almost every poll we look at. And Steve, as we move to your third chart.
Let me have it.
Maybe I want to hold that. Maybe we'll come back to the charts. By the way, Ratner, a senior partner over at Lazard Frere, kind of takes over from Felix Roatan. Dude, you got to learn how to present. You're confused. You're calling the wrong numbers, the wrong groups. What a clown. That guy wanted to be Secretary of Treasury. Couldn't even handle some basic crosstabs. It's Wednesday, 6 September, year of the Lord 2023. This is all driven by polling numbers, particularly a Wall Street Journal poll that came out over the weekend, and then a Morning Consult poll that's out today that shows full spectrum dominance by a guy named Donald Trump. Not just in the Republican Party, he's even to ahead of Biden. They're in full meltdown. We'll have a lot of clips throughout that because they're trying to, remember, it's all tribalism. And what they try to say, this is their narrative. You're in the dumb tribe. You're in the non-college educated, breathe through your mouth, work with your hands. That's your tribe. So tribalism. Welcome to the around the campfire here as the war party, the war tribe, gets kicked off. They're going to continue to hammer that. That smart people. This is not about race or ethnicity or religion, but smart people with college degrees and advanced degrees all support the managerial, control party, the administrative state party, the deep state party. That's the Democrats. That's why if you cut on MSNBC, it's all big pharma ads. I mean, if Kennedy's proposal to not let big pharma advertise, MSNBC's a test pattern. Couldn't even put the network on. And, of course, they're also the experts. They got all the experts up nonstop. In fact, I think we got Naomi on this afternoon. We're going to play Dr. Eric Weinstein's his rant on that podcast about the managerial class and the expert class. One thing they can't run away from, we'll get into it later, Fox and Friends having a meltdown on impeachment, meltdown on what McCarthy's doing. But he's been put on the clock by this audience, by the cadre. And the feedback we're getting, the reason he's been put on the clock is that you have gone to town halls, you've gone to meetings with your House representatives, particularly people in red districts that had House members that still support McCarthy or supported McCarthy on the debt ceiling, and now the lies have been totally exposed. Let me start with Richard Stern over at the Heritage at the budget policy group over there, the director. Also, he knows a thing or two about Ukraine. In this Ukraine mess, Tony Blinken kind of shows up unannounced in Kiev to have a couple of days. Actually, going to sleep overnight. I think he's the first senior official to actually spend the night because they want to get their story straight before the firestorm of the House coming back. They also, I think, Zelensky's going to the UN. The General Assembly meetings start, I think, September next week, and they'll be going for a couple of weeks. I think Zelensky's going to go over there, and Blinken wants to make sure they're on the same page. Remember, Biden is a $40 billion supplemental. Not only are we $2 trillion deficit, which we told you is going to happen, Stern told you is going to happen, Brad told you is going to happen. They lied to you. We got that. They've got the chutzpah to put up a $40 billion supplemental and to tie the Maui relief program to it because they're trying to shift, I don't know, $25 billion back over to Ukraine. Richard Stern, where are we? Now the lies have been exposed. We all know that this is $2 trillion. It's going to be in perpetuity. They're all running around. McCarthy's saying, yeah, we need a CR. We're going to need omnibus because the longer term, if you want to have longer term input, we'll do that next winter. We'll do that in January, February when we get through this. Your thoughts on all this, sir?
Well, first, thanks for having me back on. Always good to be on your show talking about these things. So, I would say this. Congressional leaders are finally returning our phone calls because they understand there's a lot of people like you and all of your watchers that are seeing these lies, that they understand they've now been exposed. And so, for once, they're actually returning our phone calls on this kind of stuff. So that's at least an encouraging sign. But, on a serious matter, you're absolutely right. They're trying to shove $40 billion down the throats of Americans. And again, goes for, needs to be repeated. None of those $40 billion are their dollars. They are all your dollars. You worked hard for them. You earned them. And now Blinken and Biden and the whole cadre of the D.C. cartel is coming together to say, how can I steal that $40 billion from hardworking Americans and give it to our friends? And, keep in mind, even the money that is, quote, going to Ukraine, most of it isn't. It's money that's going to American companies that build the materiel that we send to Ukraine. And what's even better is about half that money goes straight to them. The other half goes on a credit card that we give Zelensky, and he can only spend that credit card at U.S. defense contractors, and only particular U.S. defense contractors, and only on particular products. And I got to be honest with you, an enormous amount of them are, green energy using weapon systems. I have no idea what that means, but I think we all know they found yet another way to funnel your money into their green energy friends, and it's cloaked within being part of the Ukraine war. So that's where we are. They're running like mad to try to get their hands on members of Congress coming back from recess so they can jam this thing through next week or the week after and do it with as few eyes on it as possible. But what do you expect from the DC cartel?
Okay, but you broke some news here. I want you to go back. You actually proposed. We had Russ Vogt put up a proposal. You put up a proposal. I mean, this is your full-time job to think through how you actually, as an adult, get your hands around this mess so we don't turn our children and grandchildren into debt slaves. Or actually, we turn American citizens today under the age of like 45 into debt slaves in perpetuity. You had a balanced budget. When you said guys are calling you, they're panicked. And the reason they're panicked, I want you to go through this whole appropriations fiasco. Tell our audience, by the way, the uneducated, the tribe that's uneducated has no degrees, which is quite frankly put the fear of God into Washington, D.C. Audience, so just keep pounding. Explain to them how much real cuts have McCarthy and these guys really identified and talked about and going through the appropriation process? Because remember, we're going to get trillions of dollars of cuts. It was all going to be fine. Don't listen to Stern. Don't listen to Bratt. Don't listen to Navarro. Don't listen to Bannon. These are all a bunch of hacks. Don't know what they're talking about. How much real cut? What's the dollar amount of real cuts that you actually can identify they're talking about, sir?
Well, if I'm willing to take them at face value, we'll suspend disbelief at the moment. They are only claiming to have found $12 billion in cuts. Now, the math that my team has done and I've done is that, frankly, they've got all these side pots of money, and so they're probably looking at increasing spending by $50 billion through the appropriations process. But if we give them credit for what they say they're doing, they're only claiming $12 billion in cuts for a budget that is $1.6 trillion of discretionary spending, let alone that the federal budget itself spends more like $5 trillion a year. They've only identified $12 billion in cuts. It's an insult. Inflation is being driven by spending. Interest rates are being driven by spending. Mortgage rates are back at record highs over the last 40 years. We're back at having added close to $350,000 to the interest costs on a lifetime mortgage. And it's because while you're trying to get a mortgage to buy your first home, the government is at the buffet eating everybody else's lunch in the money markets. That's why interest rates are where they are. That's why inflation is where they are. So offering a measly $12 billion cut is going to do nothing to change that. It's going to do nothing to allow the economy to grow and people to earn and do the things they're good at. And yet, even with only claiming a $12 billion cut, as we're pointing out here, they're then asking for $40 billion for the supplemental. So even by their own math, they're asking for an increase in spending, an increase in inflation driving, interest rate driving, deficit spending. This is just insulting to the American people. But I got to tell you, as you're talking about that tribe of Americans that, frankly, it's not that they don't have college degrees. It's actually that they work and they earn more money, right? I've looked at more of the data than these CNN people have done. It's not that the, quote, highly educated vote Democrat. It's highly educated with rock bottom incomes vote Democrat. These are people that stole your money to get grad degrees in underwater basket weaving, who can't get a good paying job, and instead vote for people like Biden to steal money from the hardworking Americans that actually work in factories, that work good blue collar jobs, and work the jobs that actually produce goods and services for people. That's what's happening here. And this is the next way they're going to steal it from.
Richard, hang on for a second. We want to hold you through the break. I know you got to bounce. I want to hold you through the break. Dave Bratt's with me. We're going to go through this, break it all down. We're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to be back in the war room in just a moment.
But the games you want to play, bring it on and I will fight to the end. Just watch and see. It's all started, everything's begun, and you are over. 'Cause we're taking